Hey everyone, I'm your host, Jacqueline Howard. Thanks for joining us. This virtual event is made possible with the generous support of Lowe's. If you've joined us for a field trip before, welcome back. And if this is your first time, I'm so glad you tuned in. Today, we're traveling to South America to visit the country of Peru, where Spanish is the official language and other native languages are also spoken. Now, Peru is a very biodiverse country with habitats ranging from arid, almost desert-like plains in the coastal region to the towering peaks of the Andes Mountains and the Amazon rainforest and river. You may already be familiar with the rainforests and mountains of this country, but there's a whole other side to it that we're going to explore today. We're going to visit the coastal region of Peru. This area is absolutely amazing, and it's home to the famous Humboldt Current, as well as millions of seabirds, dolphins, whales, thousands of sea lions, and even penguins. I've seen some of the video and photos, and it's a pretty incredible place. Just take a look. Doesn't it look like an awesome place? We're going to have so much fun. Now, before we get started, I'd like to welcome our guest classroom. Mrs. Adkins' 5th grade class is joining us from Edgewood Elementary in Greenfield, Wisconsin. They're going to help me a little bit later in the field trip. Let's say hello. Hi. Thanks, everyone. I have one more thing to tell you for our field trip today, and this is going to be really fun. For the first time, we're going to be playing a game along the way. We like to call it Nature Spy. We sent your teacher a list of things to look for during this field trip, and it's up to you to find them. As you watch the field trip, note on your handout when you see something from your list of items to look for. If you're playing along, keep those eyes open. Now, I want to introduce an important person who's joining us today all the way from Peru. It's the Nature Conservancy's Matias Caillaux. Matias, thanks for being our tour guide today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in Peru for the Nature Conservancy?
Hello everyone, thanks so much for having me. I'm based in Lima, which is the capital of Peru, and also one of South America's largest cities. We're in the northwest part of South America, and my job here is working as a fishery specialist for the Humboldt Current project, which means I do science that helps protect Peru's coastal and ocean resources, like fish.
Now, we're going to learn more about the Humboldt Current in a bit, but Matias, tell us more about why you got interested in this kind of work. You must really love the ocean.
I really do. Since I was a kid, I've been really connected to the ocean. My dad was a diver, and he would take me along on trips to the shore. My parents said I used to walk around the house when I was little wearing masks and fins saying I wanted to be a marine scientist. And now that's what I do. I really love it.
That's a great story, Matias. You dreamed about studying and working with the ocean, and that's exactly what you're doing now. So can you help us understand the geography in your area a little bit more? I know a lot of Peru is known for having rainforests, but Matias, this coastal area is a bit different, right?
That's right, Jacqueline. The area of Peru that we're touring today is quite different than a lot of the country. Here in the coastal region, it's very dry, and desert meets the ocean. We're traveling to the Paracas National Reserve today, which is the oldest marine protected area in the country. And it's home to many different animals that are endemic to the area. That means that Paracas is home to species that live only there. They can't be found anywhere else, so that makes this ecosystem a very unique place.
Yeah, I can't wait to learn more about all the animals in this area. So what else can we find here as well?
People have been living and depending on this rich marine ecosystem for thousands of years. In fact, one of the first stops we'll make on our tour today is a geoglyph. So a geoglyph is an ancient artwork drawn into a landscape by people living in the area a very long time ago. This one is called the Candelabra.
I've seen geoglyphs before, but it's amazing to me that the geoglyphs at the Candelabra are cut 2 feet into the soil and may be seen as far out as 12 miles at sea. So when you visit the Paracas National Reserve, you tour it by boat. Let's hop on and check out our first stop, the Candelabra.
The coast of Peru, right along the Pacific Ocean, is a much different landscape than what you find in the interior of the country. It's where you'll find sand, desert, and the Paracas National Reserve. Our first stop on our tour of Paracas is one of the most mysterious icons in the area, a structure called the Candelabra. The Candelabra, or chandelier as it is also called, is nearly 600 feet tall. That's the same height as a 50-story building. Here's Matias.
And we're looking at the chandelier right now. So this sand image has been sitting there for centuries, and there's a lot of theories of why it's there and who made it.
So what makes this kind of structure? Most geoglyphs in the world are made from natural materials like stone, sticks, or even just the earth.
It's not clear how old the chandelier is. A lot of people say that had been here before the Inca culture.
That means the Candelabra has been here for at least 600 years, and probably much longer than that. But no one is really sure.
Wow, I know I learned a lot from that video. I really didn't know about this part of Peru, and that candelabra is so cool.
Yes, it's really amazing to see. Sailors have used it for centuries for navigational purposes. So when you are in the water looking at the shore, it makes you feel like you're really part of Peruvian history.
Yeah, that's really neat, Matias. Now, what will our next stop be as we tour Paracas?
Well, our next stop on our tour through the Paracas National Reserve is a sea lion colony with over 30,000 sea lions.
Wait a minute. 30,000 sea lions? That's a lot. I can't wait to see that. Why are there so many sea lions living here?
Well, it's because of the Humboldt Current, a cold water current that runs off of the west coast of Peru. It runs from central Chile all the way up to Peru and to the southern coast of the Galapagos Islands. This is the most productive ecosystem in the world in terms of how much fish and seafood is produced here. But it's also home to a lot of really cool animals, including the thousands of sea lions we'll see in just a minute.
So I want to take a minute to talk about why all those sea lions are there. They, like people, need to eat, right? With so many sea lions in one place, there must be a lot of food to support them. Matias, can you help us explain why there is so much food? I heard it has something to do with upwelling. What is that?
Well, that's a great question, Jacqueline. An upwelling is when wind blows across the ocean, pushing away surface water and allowing cold, nutrient-rich water to rise to the top. This process fertilizes the water, which feeds a microscopic ocean plant called the phytoplankton. These plants are part of a much larger food chain. Phytoplankton has a huge job because it feeds most of the fish in the area. And in turn, those fish feed many other animals like the sea lions living in the Paracas National Reserve.
Wow, that's a big job. I'm really starting to understand how everything is related. Now, you said this is one of the most productive ecosystems in the world because of the current, and this is why there are so many sea lions there. Let's take a minute to visit that island and those sea lions for ourselves. Take a look at this video.
Paracas National Reserve is home to a huge colony of sea lions. Sea lions are marine mammals that live in very close groups. The males are called bulls and grow to be very large, typically around 7 to 8 feet long and up to 800 pounds. Females are called cows and grow to be about 6 feet long and 220 pounds. Here's Matias.
This is home of one of the largest colony of sea lions in Peru. We can find around 30 to 50,000 sea lions here in the peak season. This kind of shows the richness and the productivity of the Humboldt Current ecosystem.
Hear all that noise? That's the bark and roar of thousands of sea lions, especially the bulls.
So now we can see this guy screaming, and it's not only because we are here. Males are very territorial, not only by the area, but also with the females. And so this guy screaming means that they are calling either their families or they are marking the territories. So sea lions are a top predator in the food chain of the Humboldt Current. They can go pretty far to fish and then come back and feed the puppies and the juveniles.
That's so cool. There are so many animals here. Let's go to our friends in Wisconsin. They've been studying sea lions and they're going to share some cool facts with us.
Hi, I'm Sam. In our research, we learned that sea lions eat 15 to 35 pounds of food a day. Hi, I'm Paige. Male sea lions have a patch of short hair around their heads similar to a lion's mane. Hi, I'm Abby. Sea lion pups annually enter the water when they are 3 to 4 weeks old.
Wow, thanks Abby and the rest of the classroom. Those are some awesome facts. Thanks for doing that research and sharing them with us. So we know sea lions are great at fishing, but they aren't the only ones fishing along the Humboldt Current. Not only do they have to share it with other animals like dolphins and birds, but they also share it with another animal, us, humans. Fishing is big in this area, right, Matias?
That's true. Fishing has been part of Peruvian culture since the start of civilization. And Peru has one of the largest fisheries in the world that handles more than 6 million tons of fish a year. So 6 million tons is equal in weight to around 400,000 school buses. This is a lot of food for the world, and it also provides jobs to more than 100,000 people. This is a very important industry for the people of Peru.
Yeah, let's take a look to see some of that fishing in action. And don't forget to look for some of your nature spy items. Matias, where are we headed to now on our tour of coastal Peru?
We are going to leave the Paracas National Reserve and visit a coastal fishing village called Ancon. There are many of these types of villages along the coast of Peru where people fish to feed themselves and their families. And they also are taking fish to markets to sell.
Remember how we talked about all the fish that fed the sea lions? Those fish are also important to humans. In fact, even though this area only represents 0.1% of the world's ocean surface, it produces 10% of the world's fish. That is some serious fish production happening in just a little part of the world.
Most of us probably think of fishing as something fun to do in the summer. But here in Peru, it's a way of life. Peru is home to one of the largest fisheries in the world. It's how people make a living, as well as feed themselves. But if people are fishing, and so are the animals, how do we make sure there's enough fish to go around? Here's Matias.
We need to make sure that while we manage a fishery, we leave enough fish in the water for important populations of sea lions, seabirds, and other marine animals have enough feed to grow healthy.
Here in Peru, fishermen are finding ways to conserve by agreeing to limit the amount that they catch in certain areas. And the problem isn't just in Peru. It's a conservation challenge for the whole world. No one has the perfect answer, but this is incredibly important work. We need to make sure animals and people will have fish to eat for generations to come.
It's so cool to see a small glimpse of the fishing that happens every single day in Peru. And now it's easy to understand why there are so many sea lions in that area. But they aren't the only animals. Matias, can you tell us about some of the other animals we might be able to see in this area?
Yeah, the animal life in the area is really pretty amazing. Not only do you have lots of sea life like these sea lions we already seen, but there is also an incredible amount of bird life too. In fact, in just a minute we will see the Humboldt penguin that lives along the coast of Peru. This particular species of penguin can only be found in this part of Peru.
I can't wait to see it. I'm so excited. But next we're headed back to Paracas to check out even more of the wildlife that depends on this very important coastal ecosystem. First, we thought it would be fun to do a little pop quiz to get us ready. True or false? The Humboldt penguin is the only penguin found in warm climates like Peru. Now, while you think of your answer, keep in mind, penguins are native to Earth's southern hemisphere, which is the half of the planet that's south of the equator. But are they generally known for living in cold areas? Do you think there are other penguins that live in warm climates? The answer is false. We will see the Humboldt penguin in our video today. But there are other penguins that live in warm climates too. For example, the Galapagos penguin lives off the coast of Ecuador. Also, the African penguin is found along the southwestern coast of Africa. There are others too. So yes, there are other penguins in warm climates. Okay, question number 2. Flamingos get their pink coloring from what they eat. Now, flamingos are really cool birds, and we're all familiar with their pink feathers. But did you know that the flight feathers found beneath their wings are actually black? You only see these hidden black feathers when their wings are extended. But let's go back to our true or false. We're going to go to our classroom again to figure out how flamingos get the pink coloring in their feathers. Classroom, can you all give us the right answer?
This one is true. When flamingos are born, they aren't pink at all. They're actually gray. But when they feed on crustaceans like shrimp or crab that contain a natural pink compound, that turns them bright pink as well.
Nice job. Thanks for sharing that answer. It's really interesting. Now let's go back to Paracas in the following video to learn about some of the other animals in Peru that depend on the richness of the Humboldt Current. Matias, what are some of the threats to this ecosystem?
Well, overfishing is a concern, and it's something that we're working on with the fishers in this area. We're using science to help them set quotas or limits on what they can catch so that they can ensure that they will have fish for years to come. And this helps the animals too, because they also rely on the fish for their survival.
So you said we're using science to help set quotas. What is a quota and how does it help conserve fish species?
That's a great question, Jacqueline. Fish conservation is something that is really tough for scientists all over the world. But one of the ways we can work to make sure fish are healthy in our oceans is to set limits on how much and how many fish can be taken out of the ocean. This is essentially what a quota is, a limited number of fish of any given species that can be taken from the water by fishers. By limiting the number of fish that can be taken, we help to ensure that there are enough of a species still in the water to reproduce and replenish their populations.
Now, I understand that there's a really strong El Niño this year. Can you tell us a little bit about that and about how it affects the ecosystem?
Yeah, this year is one of the strongest El Niños ever. El Niño is something that is part of nature and it happens every couple of years. An El Niño is when warmer waters move towards the west coast of North and South America. The best way to know when there's an El Niño is to measure the sea surface temperatures and determine if they are warmer or colder than normal. So in the image here, the darker red colors indicate warmer water than normal and darker blue indicates colder water than normal. In the picture to the left, from December 2015, look at how red it is off the west coast of South America. This shows a really strong El Niño because the temperature is so much warmer than normal. Now compare it to the picture on the right from December 2014. You can see here that the water is still a little warmer than normal, but is much cooler than in December 2015. So we talked before about upwellings, and the key there was that the cold waters brought in nutrients to the ecosystem, but during El Niño, the warmer waters decreased the amount of nutrients which starved the phytoplankton. So the warm waters covers the areas where the upwelling happens and doesn't let the cold waters come to the surface and bring the nutrients needed to sustain the Humboldt's productivity. The warming also forces fish like anchovy to move away and find colder waters.
So what happens when the fish move away? Does this mean that those animals don't have enough food to eat?
Well, yes, Jacqueline, that is exactly what it means. It doesn't last a long time, but for a while, those sea lions, seabirds, and other animals that eat anchovy don't have enough food. They won't have enough food until the water cools and the anchovy come back. But it's important to understand that this is a natural cycle that helps control the populations of sea lions and other species in the coastal ecosystem.
That still sounds really challenging for those animals. Matias, is it bad?
Well, it does seem kind of bad, but when El Niño goes away, the population of sea lions and seabirds can grow strong again. This is how animal populations work in nature. There has to be something to keep populations in control, or the species themselves can overpopulate an area and use up all its resources. In this case, El Niño serves as a natural process to ensure that these islands don't have too many sea lions on them. However, El Niño still stresses the ecosystem, so it's even more important that we humans don't put more stress on the ecosystem. And overfishing, for example, or taking too many fish in the water during El Niño is something that can really stress a coastal ecosystem.
So let's think about ocean health for a moment and what we can do to help right here in the United States. Now, some of us live near oceans and some of us don't, but we put together 4 things that anyone can do to support ocean health. Matias, what can students do to help keep coastal ecosystems healthy and productive?
Well, that's a great question, and there are a few things that you can do. First of all, the next time you eat fish, ask where it came from and how it was caught. And if available, eat responsibly caught seafood. If it's not, just by asking questions, you are creating awareness that responsible seafood is important. You can find information on which fish to avoid on the internet. Fishwatch.gov, shown here, is an example of a great place to find more information. Another thing you can do is remember that all drains lead to the ocean. Some things you flush down the toilet or rinse down the sink can be dangerous when they make their way to the ocean. What you do on land should be done with the ocean in mind, no matter where you live.
Those are great suggestions, Matias. Another thing you can do is drink from a reusable water bottle. At least 8 million tons, that's 1 garbage truck every minute of plastic leaks into the ocean every year. Avoid plastic bottles that are only used once and recycle all other plastic to help with this. And finally, don't forget to tell a friend. We need people like you helping to educate others about these important issues. So help us spread the word. Now it's time for my favorite part where we get to answer your questions. Are you ready, Matias? We have some really great questions that have been coming in today. And let's start with this one. How long do most sea lions live?
Well, that's a tough one. It will depend on the different species of sea lions that we can find. So we have 2 species of sea lions in Peru, and they can live from 16 to 24 years.
What are the top predators? So for instance, are there sharks or orcas that eat the sea lions?
So that's another type of natural control. And yeah, we do have orcas and sharks that run around these islands, especially in breeding seasons. So those are also important predators of the lions.
And also, Mrs. Klein's classroom in Kenmore, Washington wants to know, what is the most amazing adventure that you've been on with your job so far?
Oh, that's a really good one. Being able to visit that colony of sea lions, those 30,000, but in the peak that can host over 50,000 sea lions, was just incredible. And being able to swim with them was a very interesting thing.
We have one more question coming in from our classroom. So classroom, are you ready to ask your question and hear Matias's answer?
Hi, I'm Ensign. Can you tell us how long the pups stay with their mother?
For about 11 to 12 months. So it depends on each puppy, but it's about that.
And Matias, Susan Scott has a question about pups. She said that we have lots of pups and in California this year. So are you experiencing the same in your area? Are you seeing many pups?
Sadly, this has not been a very high year in recruitment of sea lions. Last year was amazing, and we were able to visit the colony during puppy time, and it was incredible to see those many puppies in the shores. So hopefully next year it's going to be better.
That's great. And Winifred Gaynor asks, what is the climate like in Peru?
Right now it's super warm due to El Nino. We are experiencing the warmest climate or highest temperature of the last, I'll say, 30 years. So it's pretty warm. During summer, it gets way colder.
And many students want to know more about the fish. What are the most common species in the area? And do you have a favorite fish in the area? And what kind of fish do you like to eat?
Well, the most important fish and fishery is the anchoveta. That's the largest fishery in the world, and we land about 5 to 6 million tons of that tiny fish every year. My favorite fish, that's a really good question. I love sharks. I really like sharks. I'm scared to them, but I love them. I think that they are amazing animals, and we need to learn a lot about them. And for eating, well, I love to eat fish, so I can eat from an anchovy to a halibut. I love all of them. So what I would usually prefer is to get fish that I know that is responsibly caught, no matter what species it is.
Yeah, that's important. And student Angie Kendall asks, are people worried about the Candelabra eroding away?
Luckily, the Candelabro is part of the Paracas National Reserve, so it is protected. The reserve is sitting there for the last 35 years. So before, we have had some events that have damaged it a little bit, but incredibly enough, it's still sitting there, and so it is protected, and it is exposed to a very windy area, and it's still sitting there. It's amazing. So we are not that worried about it, but we are taking care that none of human impacts are created around it.
And Devin wants to know, how many days do you spend doing research on the ocean every year?
I would love to say every day, but it's not the truth. We still have to do a lot of desk work. But I'll say that at least 2 days every week or 3, I'm in the ocean working, and I'll probably spend most of my weekends also around the ocean. I really love it. So if it's not working, it will be surfing, sailing, or diving. So that's the life.
Well, that's a lot of fun. So Christina wants to know, how does technology assist with fish conservation, and how could technology assist with fish conservation, especially in the future?
Well, technology is big, and it's going to be even bigger. The problem with fisheries management is that it's like very similar to forestry management. The difference is that you can see a tree, but you can't see the fish. So that makes things a little bit more complicated. Technology is helping us to understand what's going on beneath the surface. And so as technology improves, we are able to have a better idea and a better understanding of how the ocean works. So we are starting to use some technology here on tracking the boats and knowing where they are going and what they are catching, and trying to connect that to the market so people know where their fish come from. So we're using technology in a lot of ways, and hopefully it's going to make our lives way easier.
And Mrs. Flaherty's 5th grade class wants to know, are there other geoglyphs in Peru besides the Candelabra?
Well, the Candelabra is one of those, but there's this huge area very close to it. It's like 50 kilometers away that is called the Nazca lines. And we have several species or several types of geoglyphs there. We have representations of monkeys, of birds, I don't know, we have a lot of figures there. So they are very typical for that area of Peru. This one is probably the only one that is that close to the shore. That's what makes it so impressive.
And this whole time we saw many, many animals in Peru. And here in the United States, squirrels are common. Fiona wants to know, does Peru have squirrels?
We do. They are all over the city, actually. So yeah, we have squirrels, different types, depending on where you are. But we have different species in the coast, in the Andes, and also in the Amazon. So yeah.
So what are some of the other most common, animals that if we were to visit Peru, we might see kind of, running around?
In the coastal area, we have foxes, we have different types of birds. Peru is an important migration stop for birds that come from the northern hemisphere to the southern one. So yeah, we'll find different types of species here.
And Matias, I have a question. I know we talked about overfishing as being a concern in Paracas, but I'm curious, are there other concerns we should be aware of that threaten natural habitats?
I will say that most of the impacts that are being created in Paracas are created by humans. And so overfishing is very important, but littering, for example, it's also a huge problem. Paracas is open to visitors that can spend the nights there, and we need to be more conscious that when we are visiting a natural area, we bring back whatever trash we generate. So littering is generating some problems, but we're working on that.
And so you mentioned pollution and littering in Peru. Do you have groups that work to protect the area from pollution?
Yes, and we have a lot of volunteer groups who are working with schools, not us, but our partners. And so we are trying to create a conscience that we can make a change, and we can make a change. We don't need to be scientists. So kids in school can collaborate on working with us and trying to make a positive change and preserve these beautiful places that we've got. Nature definitely depends on us, and we depend on nature, so we need to work with it.
Yeah, and that question about pollution came from Miss Brenda Todd's 5th grade class, so I thought that was a great question, and thanks to the classroom. So Matias, I also want to know, for some of the students watching this who might want to be scientists one day and really admire you and aspire to become scientists when they grow up, what advice do you have for them, and how can they get started right now to explore becoming a scientist?
Go out and enjoy nature, get connected with nature, and go for it. It's a beautiful career, and you will feel rewarded for it. So get into science classes, read science stuff, and it's fun. It's super fun.
Yeah, I agree. It is super fun. And also, one really cool thing about science is we really aspire to answer questions. So are there any questions that you yourself are working to answer in your own research? What are some mysteries or unanswered questions about, the habitat that scientists are working really hard to solve and figure out?
Oh my God, we have so many right now, and it's hard to think about one, but I'll say that how much can our activities can actually incorporate this ocean variability and the risk associated to it. How can we, as scientists, be able to incorporate all this variability to be able to give correct advice to the fishers and make sure that during El Niño events we are not putting more pressure or stress on the system. That's a key one.
Yeah, that's a great response, and it does sound really fascinating. So I know we learned a lot about Peru, but I'm curious, we looked a lot at the animals in Peru. What's your favorite animal anywhere in the world, and why?
that's also a very tough one. I love marine animals. I love otters. I really love them. I really enjoy watch them floating on their backs and yeah, rubbing their bellies. I love them. I don't know. It's just such a fussy animal. I really like it.
And what's the most fascinating animal that you yourself have come in contact with and held and saw up close?
2 years ago, I was lucky enough to swim with whale shark, with several whale sharks actually in Mexico, and they are incredible. It's such a beautiful animal. It's so elegant, massive. I don't know. It's just nature being nature, perfect. It was really amazing for me to see that.
Wow. A whale shark, can we really, describe for the classrooms how massive a whale shark is? When you were there, I mean, kind of swimming right next to it, how large did it look and how big were you compared to the whale shark?
I'll say that it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 times bigger than me. I'm not that tall, but still, it was incredible. It was, I don't know, over 20 feet. Incredible animal, not afraid, not challenging us, just swimming and being majestic. The largest fish in the ocean. I don't know. It was incredible.
Yeah, that is really incredible. So for some students who do get to, live by the ocean, or for those of us who may vacation to the ocean, while we're there, in the marine habitat in person, what advice would you give to us to really explore and take in the experience? Should we try to snorkel? Should we try to, check out the sand? What advice would you give for us when we're at the ocean ourselves?
Get in the water, respect the ocean, please, always. That's a very important thing to have in mind. Don't be afraid of the ocean, but respect it and try to connect with it. If you are able to snorkel, go for it. If you are able to take diving lessons, which are important to have a lesson, and you are able to go with an instructor, go diving. If not, just walk through the beach and enjoy it. It's incredible.
And which animals and species are the most endangered, in the ocean and the marine environment? And how do we, address that issue?
There are several species that are in trouble right now, and so sharks, for example, are a critical species for controlling and maintaining marine ecosystem healthy. And in the last years, they have been suffering a lot of pressure from us. We have been fishing too many sharks, and some of species are in great risk. So those ones need a lot of attention, and sea turtles, we are not targeting them as fisheries, but because of our activities, sometimes we have bycatch, an intentional catch of turtles, and that has put in danger some of the species. Some are doing pretty well. So I think that in general terms, we need to keep in mind that we depend on the ocean, and we need the system to be healthy, and all the animals that are part of that system are important. So we need to worry about all of them.
I agree, we really do need to think about and keep all of the animals in mind. And Matias, I could ask you questions all day, but that's about all we have time for. And thank you so much for joining us and helping us understand about this amazing place that you live and work in. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I was really impressed by all of those great questions, and thanks to the class that helped out with the facts about the sea lions.
Yes, let's say thank you and goodbye to the students of Edgewood Elementary in Greenfield, Wisconsin. Thanks so much for joining us, classroom. And thanks again to Lowe's for providing support for today's virtual field trip. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. And until next time, goodbye.